The Grand Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve is home to wetland pine savannas. It is extremely important that our dedicated stewardship and research scientists work together to provide land management informed by meticulous short and long-term monitoring, maintaining pristine conditions. Restoration is a tool they use to keep the savannas in this state. Without regular wildfires, these habitats become overgrown and invaded by exotic plants, in turn suppressing their biodiversity and suitability for native species. As a means of prevention, Grand Bay NER applies land management intending to restore ecological functions to these unique ecosystems. The pine savanna ecosystem is most certainly one of beauty. Savannas are fire-maintained grasslands found in the southeastern United States. They contain few scattered pines and shrubs with a sun-loving, species-rich understory. A layer of clay can be found beneath the surface that prevents water from draining, and this results in wet, acidic soils that are poor in nutritional quality. However, these habitats do support some of the highest diversities of grass, sedge, and wildflower species ever described in North America. Some of these species are endemic and can be found nowhere else on the planet, like a few carnivorous plant species. These plants are specially adapted to attract, capture, and digest prey, such as insects along with other small animals. The Grand Bay NER and National Wildlife Refuge contain some of the best remaining examples of wetland pine savanna along the northern Gulf of Mexico. This habitat appeared some 5,000 years ago. The longleaf pine savanna is perhaps the most endangered ecosystem in the United States. Its distribution is closely tied to that of the longleaf pine. Before the arrival of Europeans in the 1600s, these landscapes stretched from Virginia to Texas and acquired some 90 million acres. Now, because of the economic value of the longleaf pine, suppression of fire, and fragmentation, pine savannas comprise a mere 3 to 4 million acres of areas where they once stood. Pine savannas contain numerous plant species. These plants must be adapted to survive in very wet, nutrient-poor soil conditions. Here, hydric soils are a result of an underlying layer of clay that prevents water draining from these areas. The high water table from late fall to early spring can result in standing pools of water that remain in the savanna for a majority of the year. These are referred to as ephemeral ponds. As the name implies, grassland ecosystems host many grasses. In Grand Bay savannas, wiregrass is the dominant species. Also in the understory, much diversity in herbaceous vegetation, as well as a few shrub species. In fact, most of the biodiversity occurs at this level, with anywhere from 150 to 300 different species per acre. An open canopy is very important in maintaining savanna structure, as it allows sunlight to penetrate to the understory. The canopy should remain below 50% cover. In most cases, it is much less than that. In savannas at Grand Bay, the canopy consists mostly of longleaf pine. This long-lived pine species requires much room to grow, and being spaced apart contributes to the light canopy layer. The tree goes through several life stages before reaching maturity. Seeds fall from cones from October to late November. After germination, the seedlings are susceptible to fire, drought, and predators for the next year, after which the young tree transitions to the grass stage, where the tree grows an extensive root system underground. This stage can last between 1 and 7 years. The tree will initiate height growth once the root collar is around 1 inch in diameter. It is now known as a bottle brush and will continue its upward growth until it reaches 6 to 10 feet, upon which lateral branches will emerge. This is known as the sapling stage. It can grow up to 3 feet a year. The tree will reach maturity around 30 years after height growth begins. Now they are able to produce cones with fertile seeds. All of these species are important to the savanna, especially when it comes to spreading fire. This is absolutely critical in developing the pine savanna structure. Wiregrass is highly flammable, and with fallen longleaf pine needles, they're perfect fuel for fire to be carried throughout the habitat. From far away, savannas don't seem to be one of the United States' biodiversity hotspots. Look closer into these seas of grass, and other signs of life begin to emerge. Many plant and tree species provide seeds and forbs for primary consumers. This, in turn, provides nutrition to animals in higher trophic levels. Water can be found almost year-round due to the high water table. The tall grasses provide much-needed shelter from predators. Many savanna species are specialists and highly adapted to live there. They must be adapted to live in extremely wet conditions. And when it's not wet, they must be adapted to survive in extremely dry conditions. Perhaps the most amazing are adaptations to either withstand frequent fires or regenerate afterwards. As a matter of fact, some species even require fire at some point in their life cycle. Savannas are beneficial to humans too. We estimate the savannas and other upland habitats at Grand Bay to provide ecosystem services equivalent to $300,000 each year. Savannas are only able to exist because they depend on the species and ecological processes that occur within. And here at Grand Bay, they also depend on us. So, we will continue striving to preserve and understand these natural phenomena.